All right, welcome back, everybody, to another Thursday night book review. I'm indie author Nick Belisi. If it's your first time joining us, we go through the books that I've written on Thursday, and we give you guys, at least with this one, the second one, we are doing, a live reading of it and stuff like that, rather than just the Easter eggs like we did with the first book. So it's exciting because if you haven't read the book, you can actually just listen to us each week, and you'll be able to understand it for free. So, how cool is that? So basically, what we're going to do at this point is, again, we're going to be reading the second book, Paradise Reborn. We are on chapter 6. Just to give you a quick rundown of what happened last week. Last week when we read chapter 5, it left off with Stacy taking Gwen to her appointment at the Reedsville Medical Center, and at which point, Gwen runs into Nurse Betty from the first book. Now she's just Betty because she's no longer a practicing nurse. And they take her in to see Stella in the ward. And when she's in the ward, Stella's not really with it and stuff like that. So, you're kind of getting a sense of where the second book left off and how Stella is on that. Then they reconvene in the hallway afterwards, and Stacy, Betty, and Gwen are talking about it, and Betty wants the help from them to figure out what's going on, and Stacy's opposed to it. She kind of storms off a little pissed off. So tonight, when we're reading chapter 6, which is called One for the Road, Stormy is going to be playing Stacy again, and she's also going to be playing Luigi, who is a worker at the Reedsville General Store. I'll be reading for Gwen and the narrator, of course, and then I'll also be playing Pete, who is returning from the first book. If you guys read the first book, it's something exciting. Pete's always been a very good character and stuff, and a personal favorite of mine. So I do have Stormy on the phone. So Stormy, you want to say hi?
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us.
No, and we are going to get right into it. So, chapter 6, One for the Road. As I walked to the hospital, Stacy was leaning against her car smoking a cigarette. She seemed like she was really agitated. I knew it was probably towards me for sticking my nose into this girl's life when I had no business doing so in the first place. I can understand why she wouldn't want me to get involved, but in my heart, if there was something I could do, why wouldn't I do it? I know how hard life was for me, and so many people tried to help me, but I wasn't ready to accept their kindness. I was stuck in life, and I couldn't see around the dark walls I'd placed around me. This girl was obviously in need of some sort of help, and with what Betty just told me, clearly I wasn't the only one who thought so. I walked up to the passenger side of Stacy's car, and as she threw her cigarette and entered the vehicle with me.
What the fuck was that in there, Gwen?
You didn't see her, Stacy. The girl's clearly in trouble.
What are you, her doctor all of a sudden?
No, but you heard Betty. Something's seriously wrong with her.
Dude, earlier today you were passed out across the road, a complete drunk mess, and now all of a sudden it's like you're some ace detective trying to solve the mystery of some whacked out chick in the nut house?
Well, what would you do, Stacy? If you knew someone was in trouble, wouldn't you help out if you could? If you were in Battlefield, wouldn't you help a fallen soldier?
That's a bullshit comparison, Gwen, and it's completely uncalled for. You're comparing a fellow soldier to some wacky bitch that's locked up, obviously for good reason. You heard the stories about what she did. Why in the hell would you want to be anywhere near this chick? I have never even opened my mouth. I should have never even opened my mouth in the first place.
I wish I could explain it to you. I wish you could have seen this girl. You just don't understand what it's like to be that lost.
Oh, and you suddenly do? What makes you the expert on the subject anyhow?
You have no idea what the last 7 years of my life have been like. You have no idea what I went through living on the road and the horrible things I'd seen in life.
How could I know? You don't tell me anything.
There was not a sound in the car as I paused, wondering if I should say something to Stacy about what my life had been like. I felt in my heart that I just couldn't muster up the courage to fill her in. I didn't want her looking at me in such a negative light. To hear about the horrid things I had done, and even worse, the things that had been done to me. There was no point in bringing it up, and even the subtle lingering memories that conjured in on me on the subject made me cower away and run into the bottle again. I pulled out one of my shooters of vodka and drank it down hard.
Right, nothing but silence and drinking. It's whatever, dude. Don't let me in. Here we go again. Back to 7 years ago when you're running from your problems. If you don't want to let me in, that's fine. But don't pretend to be some hero coming to save the day for some chick you don't even know. Clearly, you don't even have your own shit together.
Fine, Stacy. Let's just get out of here and drop the subject. Stacy started her car up when we pulled away from the hospital. I knew Stacy had a fair point, and I mean, what could I really do for this girl? Even if there was some way for me to get her out of the hospital, where would I even take her? It was just too much to process right now, and I shouldn't even worry about it. Maybe it was just all the drinking I had been doing combined with the Xanax I took earlier. Betty said that she would be in contact, so we'll just see what happens. We got a few minutes down the road and Stacy asked me,
Are you hungry at all? I haven't eaten today. I have to get cigarettes, so I was going to stop by the general store if that's cool with you.
Yeah, that's fine, but I'm just not hungry. Stacy nodded her head and put on some music that was a little louder than usual. I think she was drowning out her thoughts in her head and trying to calm down. The last thing I wanted to be doing was arguing with her, and I really didn't mean to offend her in any way. I figured it was probably best to let sleeping dogs lie for now. As we headed down the road, I leaned my head against the window and just took in all the scenery around me. It would only be a few more minutes until we arrived at the store, and I started to think if I was still going to be able to crash at Stacy's house for the night. If I wasn't going to do that, then where should I go? I know on the edge of town there's a cheap motel that couldn't be that expensive to stay for the night. I could always grab my stuff from Stacy's house and walk over there if she was willing to give me a ride. While I was there, I could stock up on hygiene essentials should I find myself without a roof over my head again. Then I could try to figure out what I'm doing here in the first place. As we pulled into town, Stacy grabbed a parking spot near the general store. It had been so many years since I'd stepped foot in here, and I wondered if it even looked the same. As we exited the car, Stacy didn't say anything, but headed right into the store. She could be so stubborn sometimes when she didn't get her way, and it was a mixed bag on how I received it. Sometimes she would pout and act childish, or sometimes she would just blow up and walk off. I'm guessing by how she is now, I'm somewhere in between the two typical avenues. As I pushed open the door and headed inside, I could hear a loud TV playing behind the counter, and I noticed a few people browsing for things around the store. Stacy had just reached the counter when she slammed on the lintel bell to signal somebody to come and ring for service. A heavier-set man came walking around with his eyes still focused on the TV in the distance. This must have been Pete that Stella mentioned earlier. I remember him from the last time I came in, but he looks so much different now. Hey, what can I get you, bella ragazza?
Hey, Pete. I need a pack of smokes and let me get an Italian sandwich.
No problem at all. Give me 1 second. Pete headed into the back of the store and Stacy walked past over to the drink coolers. She stood over there browsing for a few minutes before she signaled me to come over with her hand. I walked up to Stacy and she asked,
So, what drink do you think would go good with all that vodka you have at my house?
What do you mean?
Well, do you think I'm just going to let you get shit-faced alone?
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Well, personally, I go for something sugary to wash it down. You know, something like an orange soda or a ginger ale.
Cool, I'll grab us some orange sodas.
I actually felt really good about Stacy wanting to drink with me. It's a whole different experience drinking because your body needs you to versus to get shit-faced with someone you care about. I thought about what Stacy might want to do while we were drinking, and it just gave me such excitement. This entire time I've been here so far has just been such a whirlwind of emotions that I haven't experienced in such a long time. I started to tell myself that coming back here was exactly what I needed in life right now. I had my best friend back, and I actually felt like I had somewhat of a purpose. The thought of all this happiness I was feeling actually brought tears to my eyes. Stacy must have noticed as I tried to brush them away as she asked,
Are you okay?
I'm fine. I just got a lot going on in my head right now.
Well, knock that shit off. Didn't you hear me when I told you we're getting shit-faced tonight?
Stacy started doing a little awkward dance as she mimicked being absolutely drunk. I chuckled to myself and shook my head at her. As I walked over to the counter where she was standing at this point, I could hear Pete shouting at the TV in the back. It sounded like he was watching some sports channel and his team must have been doing badly, as he didn't sound thrilled at what was happening. He started walking out yelling something in what I believed to be Italian, with Stacy's sandwich in his hand. He placed the sub down on the counter and grabbed a pack of cigarettes off the wall. He began ringing up Stacy's stuff along with the soda she grabbed, and Stacy said,
Italy not doing so good, Pete?
Don't even get me started. The Gagoots they got playing, calling plays over there. Maron. The guy's gonna put me in an early grave.
Yeah, I could hear you all the way from the back of the store.
Do you think I'm loud? You should have heard my papa. If he was still alive, God bless his soul. Pete used his hands to quickly outline the cross in front of himself like people do in church before they begin praying. I didn't realize his father passed away. I remember coming here a lot as a kid and always seeing his dad working around the shop. It almost felt like it was the end of an era to me. When did your dad pass away, Pete? Pop passed 3 years ago. Cancer, it's a real bastardo. I'm sorry for your loss. Grazie. Did you know him at all? Well, I grew up here and I remember seeing him a lot when I was younger. Como te chiami? I don't know what you just asked me. Oh, I'm sorry. I asked what your name was. Oh, it's Gwen. Gwen Murphy. Why does that name sound familiar? Did your dad own Lou's down the road? Yeah, actually he did. Okay, well that makes sense. He was a good guy. He used to come in here on his lunch break a lot. It's a terrible thing that happened. I'm so sorry for your loss. I appreciate that. Do you think I can ask you something? Sure, no problem. What did you want to ask? Do you know a girl named Stella Morgan? Oh, Stacy.
Okay, Gwen, let's go. We don't need to be doing this again.
Yes, of course. I've known Stella since she was a little bambina. She's like a little sister to me. Why do you ask? Oh, I went to go see her today and she mentioned you. Stella mentioned me? What did she say? She just said your name. I was talking about the store here and she just said the name Pete. Pete looked completely puzzled if it was some sort of shocking news to him. He almost looked as if he had fell into some sort of trance, trying to take in everything I just said to him. It took him a few moments as he gathered himself, and he stepped towards the back and yelled out, Luigi, watch the calendar, I'm going out back.
I'm watching the game.
Pete walked a little bit closer to Luigi. Vieni a guardare la faccia de negozio per un minute, idiota.
El tuo.
Sorry, girls. Let's go talk about this outside. I'll meet you out back in a minute. Pete walked away and headed towards the back of the store. I could tell Stacy was not thrilled about me bringing up the subject again, but it was a question I needed answered. I started to walk around front of the store, and Stacy followed closely behind me. As we headed out of the back of the store, Stacy said,
Dude, why don't you let this shit go?
Stacy, it's a simple question. What does it matter? Stacy, obviously getting annoyed at me again, followed closely behind me as I headed towards the back of the store. Pete was standing there already waiting for us, taking some drags off of a cigarette. As we approached him, he took in a deep breath and he spoke. That's the nut. He told me she had no memory of anything. Who? The detective. Yeah, it's some guy named Hunt. He came around here asking us all sorts of questions, and I told us that Stella was in the hospital with no memory of her past. I've wanted to see her, but I didn't think I was able to. I miss my tesoro very much. From what I saw, she really doesn't have much of a memory, but she did say your name when I mentioned the store. Did she say anything else? Very little, to be honest. She's very agitated, and I couldn't understand why I was even there. Well, how did you manage to get in? Well, I was escorted by an old nurse from school that I used to attend. You talking about Betty? Yeah, I ran into her at the hospital, and she took me to visit. That woman has a lot of love for Stella.
Why is that? It seemed like she met her in the school. Why is she so attached to helping this girl?
Well, many years ago, Betty lost her own daughter to a suicide, and I think that she sees something in Stella that reminded her of her own daughter. I went to school here in Reedsville with her daughter Vanessa. She always seemed like something was off, and then one day she took her own life. That must have been really hard on Betty. It was, and ever since then she just became like an angel in this town. She's always helping people, and you couldn't say a bad word about her. She comes here a lot, and we cater some of the events she does for the girls in the situations. She's a great woman. Well, she seems to think that there's something being done to Stella, and that she needs to be taken out of that hospital. There's definitely something strange going on in this town. Ever since that boy died up at the lake there, it's been a very dark cloud over everything. Even the police know something strange is going on. I would say to talk to the guy running the investigation, but trust me, you don't want to get involved with him.
We don't need to be getting involved at all. Let's go, Gwen. We have to head back.
Thank you so much for the info, Pete. You've been a real help. Think nothing of it. If you hear anything about Stella, please let me know. Anything I could do at all, please just come see me. We waved goodbye to Pete as we started walking towards Stacy's car. As we entered the car, Stacy quickly started it and took off down the road. I could tell she was a little irritated again, and before I could even begin to explain myself, she said,
You just don't want to quit, do you?
Stacy, I don't want to fight about this. Let's just go figure out what we're going to do tonight and just leave it be. I owe you a drink or two. Let's just focus on that.
See, now you're speaking my language, dude.
Stacy cranked up the volume on the stereo and gave a yell out the window, signaling that she was ready for the night to begin. I didn't want this conversation to keep coming up, so I knew it was best just to enjoy my time with Stacy and just get a little fucked up. Stacy, speeding down the road like the anticipation inside her couldn't wait any longer than the drive took her to get to her house. After a few minutes of Stacy singing along to songs in her car, we arrived at the house. As we exited the car, Stacy looked over at me and spoke.
Okay, so here's the plan. First, we'll go inside and have a few pre-game drinks. Then we'll head down to the bar. I figured we can do a little dancing and maybe shoot some pool. I know a great bar with some good people.
Listen, I'm all down to have some drinks, Stacy, but I don't really know if I want to run into anyone out in town.
It's all good, dude. It's just outside of town in Hampton, so no one will know us there. Trust me, you're gonna love this place.
What's this place called?
The Third Base Pub.
What kind of a name is that for a bar?
I don't know, dude. Maybe the guy likes baseball or broken girls. Doesn't matter. They have live music and shit, and it will be fun. I want to get changed into something nicer.
If you say so, Stacy. We headed inside of Stacy's house and went upstairs. I walked back into Stacy's room and grabbed the vodka for us. Stacy took the bottle and started chugging it down and then chased it with the soda she just bought. I was surprised that she could drink like that. It was actually kind of a turn on for me.
Maybe at least taught me one good thing.
Yeah, it certainly looks like it. I took the bottle from Stacy and tipped the bottle straight up into the air, trying to drink down even more vodka than Stacy just did. I managed to take about down 3 full mouthfuls before pulling the bottle from my lips and placing it on her desk.
Well, damn, dude, you sure can drink. Don't get too fucked up before we go to the bar. I'm gonna run and get changed really quick. I think my mom's got some nice stuff I can borrow. You want me to pick something out for you?
No, I think this works for me. Who do I have to impress?
Well, me, duh. I'll be right back.
Stacy ran out of the room and headed down the hall. I walked over to her mirror to make sure I looked okay. I think that comparing myself to how I arrived here, it looked great. A massive part of me really didn't want to go out, and I just wanted to hang out with Stacy and catch up with her. I thought to myself, what if someone from Reedsville recognized me and I had to explain where I'd been all this time? It just gave me anxiety thinking about it. I was no stranger to the bar scenes, but in my experiences, nothing ever good came out of it. You had drunk guys trying to take you home and fights breaking out. The only positive thing about my experiences was I could drink for free most nights if I looked good. Once I started letting myself go, the owners picked up on me for the reason being there and stopped letting me in. They advised me if I couldn't follow the dress code and pay for my own drinks, then I wasn't welcome. It shouldn't matter who buys me drinks or what I wear, but it's not my rules. I guess I only have myself to blame because there were a few times where I had gotten obscenely drunk and had a few fights myself. I think back to one time in particular when this girl was acting like an idiot and spilled her beer all over me. I confronted her, and she could just care less. She called me a bum and made fun of my clothes. So I grabbed a fistful of her hair with my left hand and then started punching her in the face with my right. The bouncer came and broke us up and picked me up and threw me outside the bar. They had told me that I was 86th from ever coming back, but I didn't care. I'm not a fighter by any means, but I'll smack a bitch should I need to stand up for myself. When you live on the road like I did, you need to be able to handle yourself. Stacy came walking back into her room, wearing a beautiful red cocktail dress, and it almost made my head spin completely off my shoulders. She had so much beauty to her, and the dress looked like it was made just for her the way it fitted so well.
Well, what do you think?
You look incredible.
Okay, good. I'm lucky my mom is like the same size as me. Okay, let's grab a free drinks and get out of here.
Stacy walked over to the bottle and began drinking a little more. I followed suit and had some myself. Once we polished off enough to get us both feeling good, we headed downstairs and out of the house. As we approached Stacy's car, I asked her, "Hey, how are we going to get it back if we get shit-faced?"
You're standing right next to it.
Do you think that's a good idea to be drinking and driving, Stacy?
Dude, just live a little. My best friends come back to town and I want to go out. Just get in the car and don't worry so much.
I listened to what she said and headed into the car. Stacy scrambled through her phone looking through some music and found a song that she seemed to like. She turned the music up real loud and started yelling out the lyrics as she backed out of the driveway. I couldn't help but laugh as I watched her dance around in her seat and sing along to the music. My anxiety about going to the bar started to dwindle away, and I tried my best to sing along with her. Stacy pointed to her glove box, signaling me to open it. As I reached in the front of it, I pulled the lever and the drawer dropped, and she had some paperwork in there and a few little bottles of tequila sitting there. I didn't think Stacy was that into drinking that she would keep handheld bottles in her car. Excuse me. As I grabbed the 2 flask-sized bottles out of the glove box, I noticed she also had a gun in there. I immediately turned down the music and asked her, "Stacy, why the fuck do you have a gun in here?"
Chill out, dude. It's my dad's gun. Always keep it in there. Now hand me that tequila.
Stacy, why don't you just focus on getting us there?
It's just one for the road, and I don't know what you see, but this looks like road to me.
Stacy grabbed the bottle right out of my hand and took a swig from it. I couldn't believe how reckless she actually was. She's driving around with a gun in her car and alcohol. I couldn't tell if I was more turned on by the chaos or scared of it. Guns made me nervous ever since Victor died, and I didn't feel comfortable being around it. I closed the glove box and tried to put it out of my mind. Stacy put the music back on, didn't have a care in the world about any of it. She reached down and pulled out her cigarettes and lit one up. Stacy took a few drags and handed me the cigarette. We shared the cigarette, passing it back and forth, and before we could finish it, we pulled up to the bar. The bar didn't seem unique in any way at all. If anything, it seemed like it was kind of a dump. The building was a dirty yellow place with paint chipping off the outside. The massive sign above the entrance said the name, and it looked like it was surely seen better days. Why would Stacy insist on going to a dump like this?
Don't let the outside fool you, dude. This place is awesome.
We parked the car and took a few more swigs from each of the tequila bottles and headed inside. As I walked into the bar, the place reflected nothing like the outside look. The bar was actually fairly modern and had a DJ set up in the corner by the dance floor playing music. There must have been about 50 people spread throughout this place, and it actually was a younger crowd. From the outside, you would think you were walking into some dump where people would spit on the floor or something. Stacy and I walked up to the bar and we ordered some drinks. As I scanned the room, the place actually looked like this might be fun. The bartender brought over us some brightly colored drinks, and as I reached into my jeans to grab some money, Stacy shoved my hand back down.
Roger, put it on the tab, all right?
The bartender nodded to Stacy, and we grabbed our drinks. Stacy guided me to the dance floor as I sipped on my drink, heading out. She was moving her body and swaying with the music. When we got towards the center of the floor, she began dancing on me, and it seemed all the guys around us kept staring. I couldn't help myself but to watch her hips sway with the music, leaving me almost in a hypnotic state. The feeling of utter freedom and happiness washed over me more, and I got into the moment. I felt so liberated, and I wanted to... I felt as if I could die right now, and I would die happy. We danced for a few songs, sipping away on our drinks, and then Stacy signaled for me to head to the bar. As we exited the dance floor and went back to the bar, Stacy asked the bartender for another round.
Wow, I really worked up a sweat back there. You got the drinks, I have to hit the head.
Stacy walked off towards the other end of the bar and headed into the bathroom. I sat down on the stool at the bar and patiently waited for our drinks to arrive. I was dancing along with the songs playing in my chair when a man came and sat next to me. I didn't think much of it because it's a bar, but he just kept looking at me. I hoped in my head that this guy wasn't going to try to pull something because I wasn't in the mood to be hit on right now and have it spoil my night. The man looked to be around 6 feet tall with an average build and had a little longer black hair than normal man should have. He seemed like he was older and could easily pass for what my father's age might be. He wasn't dressed like he was going to be going dancing. He almost seemed out of place in this crowd. "Hey, can I buy you a drink?" "No thanks. I have some coming." Pretty girl like yourself, you shouldn't have to pay for drinks." "Thank you, but I can pay for my own drinks." You look familiar. Do we know each other?" "No, I'm not from around here." I feel like I know you from somewhere." "Nope, I'm sure it's not me." "Are you really sure?" "I'm pretty certain I've seen that pretty face somewhere." I tried my best to ignore this guy, and I could easily tell where this conversation was headed. As the bartender came over with my drinks, I thanked him and started to walk away from the bar and towards the bathroom where Stacy would be coming out of. As I walked past the man that was talking to me, he turned around and reached for my arm and grabbed it above the elbow, which made me spill one of the drinks on the floor. The drink wound up getting all over my pants and shoes, and I looked up to confront the guy as he spoke. I'm so sorry, sweetie. Now see, let me buy you a drink to fix this." "It's fine. I need to go find my friend." No, don't run off like that. Come on, I'm a good guy. Let me make up for this." I attempted to pull away from the man, but he was still holding my arm and seemed to grip it tighter more than usual and the more I resisted his advances. I started to feel frightened. This doesn't seem like your regular asshole trying to sleep with me. This guy felt more dangerous. The lighting from the dance floor panning over the man's face made me flash back to when Stacy's dad held me like this, and I thought for a moment I saw his face. And instinctively, I dropped the drink out of my right hand and punched the man square in the face. I didn't know what came over me, and it felt like something else had just taken complete control. I must have hit him hard enough to do damage as he was holding his nose, and you could see a little blood trickling through his fingers. The man extremely yelled, "Why the fuck did you do that?" Before I could say anything, Stacy came racing over me to try to figure out what just happened.
Quinn, what did you do?
This fucking bitch just hit me in the face.
Hey, don't talk to her that way.
No, fuck this chick. All I was doing was trying to be a gentleman, and she just went full psycho.
Quinn, are you okay?
Is she okay? Look at my nose. This little bitch is... Before the man could even finish what he was saying, Stacy turned around and gave him a few good shots in the face, knocking him into the floor. I don't think she realized how much strength she had put into her punches, because the look on her face seemed extremely surprised. Stacy quickly reached into her bra, pulled out some cash, and threw it on the bar, towards the bartender. Stacy grabbed me and started to shove towards the door. As we exited the bar and jumped into Stacy's car, we quickly started it and peeled off out of the parking lot.
Woo, can you believe that shit?
Stacy was laughing and speeding away like we had just robbed the place. I guess she didn't want to stick around and get in any trouble. I couldn't believe she just stood up for me like that. Wow, Stacy, what was that back there?
Fuck that guy. Nobody talks to my girl that way. Hey, grab me a cigarette, will you?
I reached down into the cup holder where Stacy had her cigarette pack and pulled us out a couple. I put both cigarettes into my mouth and lit them, handing one of them back to Stacy. Looking over at Stacy and seeing the smoke around her under the passing streetlights made my heart full. There was something about the way she looked right now. It almost made time slow down right before my eyes. That beautiful smile and her contagious laugh intoxicated me in a way that no amount of alcohol could ever come close to. It was as if I had been walking through the world with blinders on for most of my life, and now the cobwebs had finally been removed. There was something so sexy and comforting about watching her protect me and hit a man easily double her size in the face without even a question of the consequences. I had to try and talk myself down a little bit from this euphoria as the questions started fluttering in my mind. She was my best friend. How could I possibly think of her in such a romantic light? What could I even offer her in this situation if it was reciprocated? How could I be falling for someone whose father did such horrible things to me? I knew I needed to slow down, but every inch of my being couldn't help but want more. This was a high I never wanted to come down from. Taking a drag from my cigarette, I convinced myself, just let the chips fall where they may, and simply let go. I reached down with my left hand and grabbed Stacy's other hand and held it with our fingers intertwined. Stacy looked over at me and smiled as we sped off into the night. This was home, and this is exactly where I wanted to be. As we pulled down Red Oak and started approaching Stacy Street, she lowered the music and we slowly crept onto Pine Street. As we approached her house, she quietly as possible pulled into her driveway. I noticed a red car was parked in the driveway that wasn't there before. I had to assume it was her mom's. Stacy put the car in a park, looked over at me, and spoke.
Okay, so here's the plan. My mom's probably getting ready for bed, so I'll go inside and see what's going on, and you wait here. Once I make sure she is asleep, I'll come back and get you. Then you can crash here for the night.
All right, Stacy, that's fine.
Wow, not even a little bit of resistance from you? See, things are so much simpler when you just listen to me.
Stacy chuckled a little as she got out of the car and headed into the house. I patiently waited outside for her and replayed everything that happened tonight in my head. It was about 15 minutes before Stacy peeked out the front door and waved for me to come inside. I got out of the car as quietly as I could, making sure not to alarm her mom that I was here. It's not as if I thought her mom wouldn't let me stay, but with how much we drank tonight, it's probably best for her not to see me this way after all this time. As I walked up to the front door, Stacy signaled for me to be quiet with her finger. No matter how quiet Stacy was trying to be, she couldn't stop giggling like a schoolgirl and was clearly intoxicated. As we walked inside, I saw the living room TV was on, and Stacy pointed to the couch beside it. Mrs. Hubbard was laying on the couch, and you could tell she was sleeping from the little snores she let out. Stacy walked over to the kitchen and grabbed some things from the fridge, and then we headed upstairs. Once we got to the top of the stairs, we went into her room and shut the door behind us. Stacy burst into laughter as she put all the food down she was carrying onto her computer desk.
Dude, my mom was passed out. She probably had more than we did.
Why is she sleeping on the couch?
She had some wine out, so she probably had a few and fell asleep.
Why did you bring all this stuff up here?
It's like a treasure trove of fucking banging food. Get us some drinks going. I'm starving.
I went to my backpack and grabbed out the vodka I had left over and walked over to Stacy. Stacy, with not a care in the world, was picking up cold leftover food from various plastic containers and just stuffing her face. She had me cracking up while she turned to me and grabbed the vodka and had some chicken hanging from her mouth. We both almost fell to the floor laughing. As she swallowed the food down, she took some drinks from the bottle and passed it back to me. I grabbed the bottle and began taking drinks myself. I sat down on Stacy's bed and watched her in amazement as she blew through a good portion of the food she just brought up. She could see I was watching her, and she asked with a mouth half full of food.
You want them?
No, I'm okay. I think you got it covered.
You're lost, dude.
Stacy started to finish up eating and logged onto her computer. After a few minutes of searching, she started to play some music at a low volume. She was swaying her hips and grooving with the music playing. She casually danced her way over towards me, lip-syncing words to the song as she gently took the bottle from me and started drinking it. She was just radiating such beauty from her, and we were having so much fun. It was the type of night years from now that we could look back on and laugh. It was a very positive memory that I would cherish for the rest of my life. After a few minutes, Stacy sat on the bed next to me and asked,
So, was this one hell of a night or what?
"You can say that again."
See the way that dickhead hit the floor back there?
I know, my jaw was literally on the floor next to him. Where did you learn to hit like that?
You learn pretty quickly in the Navy when you go out that you have to be able to handle yourself. Drinking around dudes in the bar always leads to problems. Speaking of throwing hands, what was up with you? You busted that guy open pretty good before I even stepped in. I should be asking you where you learned to fight.
Well, after I left Reedsville, life wasn't always easy. And like you said, you have to learn how to handle yourself. Dude had it coming. Grabbing me like that?
Why did he do that in the first place?
No idea. He just started hitting on me, and then when I went to go find you, he tried to stop me. It all happened so fast. You think the cops are going to come looking for us?
Nah, Roger is a buddy of mine. He'll squash it.
Well, thank you again for doing that, Stacy.
It's all good. I told you before, nobody's going to talk to you that way.
My eyes locked in sync with Stacy's, and I could feel this overwhelming need to kiss her coming over me. I subtly bit my lower lip, and I just couldn't help the feeling as I slowly leaned in and kissed her. The earth-shattering feeling of our lips colliding was the cherry on top of our perfect night. I couldn't help myself but to let it keep going. We kissed, and Stacy began to lower me down into the bed and started kissing around my neck with such passion. I hadn't experienced such a fiery lust in my entire life. With each kiss she landed, trailing down my neck, the hotter I became. I could feel Stacy slowly sliding her hand down my stomach and towards my jeans. I took my hand on the back of her neck and pulled her in as tight as I could. As Stacy began unbuttoning my jeans, a flash came over me of being in this house and having her father raping me, and subconsciously, I pushed Stacy off of me and began sobbing into my hands as Stacy spoke.
Hey, are you okay?
I'm fine. I'm sorry. I just can't do this right now.
Did I do something wrong?
No, I'm sorry, Stacy. I'm just all fucked up. I just can't do this right now. I need to lay down. I stood up from Stacy's bed and started to gather my things. When Stacy walked up to me, she spoke.
Gwen, what did I do? I can't let you walk out on me right now. I'm not going to make the same mistake as last time letting you run from me. Just calm down and talk to me. You can tell me anything.
I can't talk about it with you, Stacy. I just can't. I just need to get my thoughts in order.
Listen, my mom is sleeping downstairs. Just crash here for the night. And we'll sort this out in the morning, I promise. I won't try anything, and we can just call it a night.
Stacy leaned in closer to me and wrapped her arms around me with such a loving embrace. I couldn't help but to cry uncontrollably into her shoulder. All the pain and hurt I was carrying around with me just came crashing out. Why was I so fucked up? Why couldn't I have a normal life and just be a normal woman? I wanted Stacy so bad, but why do I have to ruin everything I touch?
It's okay, Gwen. I'm here for you. And I'm not going anywhere.
Stacy gently pulled my face away from her shoulder as tears poured from my eyes. We stared at each other with our hands on both of our sides of her cheek, and she spoke.
I promise I won't hurt you. We've always had each other's back, and I'm not going anywhere.
I nodded my head in agreement and tried to get myself in order. As I wiped away the tears from my face, Stacy went over and tossed me a shirt that was laying on the floor. She told me to use it to wipe my face, and I did. After I was cleaned up as much as I could be, Stacy walked over to the closet and started pulling out some pillows and blankets for me. She began setting up a little bed on the floor beside hers, and then walked over to her dresser and grabbed me some pajamas. I felt so ashamed having acted like this in front of her, and I was scared that she might think I was some sort of freak. I grabbed the pajamas and quickly put them on as Stacy did the same thing. Once we were both finished getting dressed, she turned off the light, and the only thing illuminating the room was the night sky shining in through the slightly open blinds. I laid down on the floor beside Stacy's bed and wished her a good night. I tried my best to let all my thoughts go from my mind, but it was just so relentless. Overthinking everything, as I had always done, made me feel so much worse. I couldn't help but to slightly sob into my pillow Stacy laid out before me. Stacy could hear me whimper, and she leaned over, placed her hand on my shoulder, and said,
"The floor isn't the greatest, but there is plenty of room up here if you want."
I immediately sprang from the floor and cuddled up next to Stacy in her bed, my face buried again in her chest as she held me tight as she could. I just felt so safe in her arms, and she began slowly running her fingers through my hair and humming out a little song. It made me almost chuckle at how childish this seemed, but I just felt at home. Me, Gwendolyn Murphy, finally feeling at home. It only took a few minutes for me to feel completely at ease, and I drifted off into sleep. And that is chapter 6. So, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of changes and stuff. You get to see that there's this relationship dynamic going on between Gwen and Stacy that's starting to boil up and gain some traction. But, you know, the history that Gwen has is preventing her from moving forward with that because, like we spoke about earlier in the week on Tuesday, trauma. Again, those lessons each week are not only to help, but also give insight to what the characters are feeling as well. So you see, as we talked about on Tuesday, Gwen has this overwhelming unprocessed trauma from what Stacy's dad did to her like 6 years ago. And it's just so much for her to deal with, and she keeps having those flashbacks and those moments of trauma. The anxiety, the panic, all that stuff is kicking in like it's everything that we were talking about because it was never processed. She just masked it with alcohol. So these things are always going to happen when in that type of situation. So, we got a bunch of Easter eggs to go over for this one. So chapter 6, One for the Road. That was just a common thread saying that we would always say when we were going to parties and stuff like that in my younger days. You know, you'd always say, hey, we're about to go to this person's party or whatnot. Let's just have one for the road to get us there. You want to get like a little buzz going before you go to the bar, before you go wherever. Save money on drinks and whatnot. And, you know, it loosens you up a little bit. So that's where that came from. On page 127, Gwen talks about the excitement of, you know, getting shit-faced. Like how Stacy's telling her that, oh, you know, we're going to get shit-faced thing. Gwen talks about how exciting it is and how it's more fun for her to get drunk with, like, Stacy with a plan and stuff like that rather than just use it because her body needs it or she's an alcoholic or whatever the case may be. That's exactly how I felt about it. So that was just another reiteration from my own life. You know, with Gwen sitting there and saying that, I always had more fun going out and doing something like going to the bar or the strip club or whatever the case may be, rather than just sitting in the basement or something like that alone, just drinking and just, you know, being there with my thoughts. You know, that was more of a, like I was bored or I had nothing going on and that's why I was doing that. So it's always more fun when you have a plan. We get reintroduced to Pete. You know, personal favorite of mine, I know Stormy's as well, and a couple other people that I know have read the book really like Pete. He's such a solid character and very loving and caring, and, you know, you explore the dynamic with him a little bit in this book, but even more so in the third book. He's going to be a huge part of that, so, you know, stay tuned for that. Now, when they go to the bar, they're going to the Third Base Pub. That was actually modeled after a place here in New Jersey, in Branchville, that carries the same name. But the location of it is in Hampton, and Hampton is the town that I grew up in most of my life. So I kind of threw the two of those together for that one. Now, on page 136, Gwen says that Stacy's drinking was, and, you know, like the fact that she had all this alcohol